The journey of Alex. How he mastered English. Alex was 22 years old, living in a small, peaceful town. He had always dreamed of exploring the world, meeting new people and experiencing different cultures. But there was one thing standing in his way: his poor English skills. In school, he had studied English for years, but he could barely hold a conversation. Every time he tried to speak in English, he stumbled over his words, mispronounced them, or simply forgot what to say. One day, after a frustrating experience at the local cafe where he couldn't even ask for directions in English, Alex sat on a bench, feeling defeated. His thoughts were filled with regret and doubt. Why couldn't I learn this language? He wondered. What am I doing wrong? But then something clicked inside Alex. He realized that if he wanted to change his life, travel the world, and pursue his dreams, he couldn't give up. He had to face his fears and learn English properly. He thought to himself, if so many people around the world can speak English, why can't I? That very moment, he made a life-changing decision. He would become fluent in English no matter what it took. Step 1. Setting clear goals. The next day, Alex woke up with determination. He knew that to achieve fluency, he needed to set clear goals. Without goals, he felt like he would drift without purpose. So, he grabbed his notebook and wrote down his English learning goals. 1. Learn 10 new words every day. 2. Practice speaking English for at least 30 minutes daily. 3. Watch English movies and shows without subtitles. 4. Write one diary entry in English every night. 5. Find people to practice English with. With his goals set, Alex felt ready. He knew it would be a long journey, but he was excited to start. Step 2. Immersing in English vocabulary. Alex's first challenge was vocabulary. He realized that to speak fluently, he needed to know a lot of words. So, he decided to immerse himself in English words. He started labeling everything in his house with sticky notes. He labeled the refrigerator, kitchen, sofa, and even his toothbrush. This way he could see English words everywhere and learn them naturally. Every morning, he would write down 10 new words in his notebook. But he didn't just memorize them. He made it a fun game. He would look at the words and create funny sentences. For example, when he learned the words umbrella, sun, and beach, he made up a sentence. My umbrella is at the beach, but the sun is hiding behind a cloud. It didn't always make sense, but it helped him remember the words and kept learning enjoyable. Step 3. Thinking in English. One of Alex's friends, Maria, was learning English too. One day, she gave him a brilliant idea that changed everything for him. She said, Alex, the key to fluency is thinking in English. Stop thinking in your native language and translating everything. Start thinking directly in English. At first, Alex didn't understand how this would work, but he decided to try it. When he woke up the next morning, instead of thinking, I need to brush my teeth, he tried to say it in English in his mind. I need to brush my teeth, he thought. Then, I'm hungry. What should I have for breakfast? Slowly it became easier. He started narrating his entire day in English, even simple things like, I am going to the store, or I have to feed my cat. The more he thought in English, the faster his brain started to process the language. It wasn't easy at first. Sometimes he struggled to find the right words. But with practice, it became natural. Step 4. The power of speaking to himself. Although thinking in English helped, Alex knew that speaking was where he had the most fear. He avoided speaking to others in English because he was afraid of making mistakes. But then he had an idea. Why not practice by talking to himself? Every night before bed, Alex would stand in front of the mirror and have conversations with himself. He would pretend to be in different situations. "Hello, Alex," he would say. "How was your day today?" Then he would answer himself, "Oh, it was a busy day. I went to the store, did some laundry, and watched a movie." Felt a bit silly at first, but it was actually very helpful. He even started talking to his dog, Max, in English. "Max, do you want to go for a walk?" he would ask. Max would wag his tail, and Alex would laugh. "You don't understand English, do you? But you still want to go for a walk." This became a daily habit, and it helped Alex become more comfortable with speaking. Step 5. Watching English shows and movies. One of the best parts of learning English for Alex was discovering the world of English language movies and TV shows. He started watching all his favorite shows in English, and it didn't feel like studying at all. At first, he used subtitles to understand the dialogue, but over time, he challenged himself to watch without subtitles. His favorite show was a sitcom about a group of friends living in New York City. The characters were funny, and Alex learned so many useful phrases from watching their conversations. "Could I be any more tired?" one character would say, and Alex would repeat it, trying to match the tone and rhythm. It was fun, and before he knew it, he was picking up new expressions and even some slang. One day, he watched an action movie where the hero had to defuse a bomb. The dialogue was fast, and there were a lot of tense moments. Alex paused the movie several times to catch all the words. But by the end of the movie, he was proud of himself for understanding most of it. Step 6. Practicing with friends. Alex knew that learning alone could only take him so far. He needed real conversations with other people. So he joined an English-speaking club in his town. Every week, the club would meet at a cafe, and everyone would take turns speaking in English. First, Alex was nervous. What if I make mistakes? What if people laugh at me? He worried. But when he went to his first meeting, he found that everyone was supportive. There were people from all over the world, and they all had one thing in common. They wanted to learn English. Alex made new friends, including Maria, who became his practice partner. They would meet after the club to chat in English about their daily lives. One evening, Maria suggested they practice by role-playing. "Let's pretend we are at a restaurant," she said. "I'll be the waitress, and you'll be the customer." It was a fun way to practice, and they both laughed when Alex ordered a burger with extra cheese, no lettuce, and a chocolate milkshake, please. Step 7. Writing to express his thoughts. One of the challenges Alex faced was expressing complex thoughts in English. He realized that speaking was only part of the process. He needed to improve his writing skills as well. So he decided to keep a diary in English. Every night before going to bed, Alex would write about his day. At first, his entries were simple. "Today I went to the park. It was a nice day. I had ice cream with Maria." But as time passed, he started writing longer, more detailed entries. "Today Maria and I went to the park. The sun was shining, and we sat under a big oak tree." We talked about our dreams and how we both want to travel the world. I told her about my dream to visit Australia. Writing helped Alex organize his thoughts and find the right words to express himself. Over time, he noticed that his sentences became more natural, and he could write about his feelings, his dreams, and even his frustrations with learning English. Step 8. Reading books for fun and learning. Alex always loved reading, but he had only ever read books in his native language. He decided to challenge himself by reading English books. He started with simple children's stories. His first English book was about a little rabbit who wanted to become a hero. The sentences were short and easy, and there were pictures to help him understand. As his confidence grew, Alex moved on to more challenging books. He read mysteries, biographies, and even some famous classic novels. He found that reading not only improved his vocabulary but also helped him understand how sentences were structured in English. He loved getting lost in a good book and sometimes spent hours reading without realizing how much time had passed. One day, Alex picked up a famous self-help book in English called How to Win Friends and Influence People. It was difficult at first, but he pushed through. By the time he finished, he felt like he had accomplished something huge. Step 9. Traveling to practice English. After a year of hard work, Alex decided it was time to put his English skills to the ultimate test. He booked a trip to London, where he would be surrounded by native English speakers. This was his chance to practice everything he had learned. When he arrived in London, he was both excited and nervous. Would his English be good enough? On his first day, he walked into a coffee shop and ordered, "I'd like a cappuccino, please." The barista smiled and said, "Sure, coming right up." Alex felt a rush of happiness. He had done it. He had spoken English in a real situation, and it had gone smoothly. During his trip to London, Alex made it a point to engage in conversations whenever possible. He went on walking tours, visited museums, and even attended a language exchange event at a local community center. At the event, he met people from all over the world who were also learning English. It was a perfect opportunity to practice and make new friends. One evening, Alex decided to explore a famous bookstore he had heard about. As he wandered through the aisles, he saw countless books in English on every subject imaginable: history, science, travel, and fiction. He found a section dedicated to books on learning English, and his eyes lit up. He grabbed a book titled Mastering English Through Conversation. As he flipped through its pages, he realized how much progress he had made. A year ago, reading a book like this would have been impossible. Now he could understand most of it. After buying the book, he sat in a cozy corner of the cafe inside the bookstore, ordered a cup of tea, and started reading. He felt proud of himself. It was a small moment, but for Alex, it represented how far he had come. He was not just learning English anymore, he was living it. Step 10. Overcoming challenges. Of course, Alex's journey wasn't without challenges. There were times when he felt stuck, moments when he couldn't find the right word or phrase. Sometimes he would hear people speaking in fast English, using idioms and expressions he had never heard before, and he would feel lost. But instead of getting frustrated, Alex reminded himself that learning a language is a process. He embraced his mistakes and used them as opportunities to learn. One particularly challenging moment came when he had to make a phone call to book a hotel room for a weekend trip to Brighton. Speaking English on the phone was terrifying for Alex because he couldn't rely on body language or facial expressions to help him understand. But he knew he had to push through his fears. With his heart racing, he dialed the number and listened as the receptionist answered. "Hello, thank you for calling Seaside Hotel. How may I assist you today?" Alex froze for a second, but then he took a deep breath and said, "Hi, I'd like to book a room for this weekend." The receptionist asked a few questions, and Alex struggled a bit with understanding the dates and room options. But he kept going, asking for clarification when he needed it and slowly gaining confidence. By the end of the call, he had successfully booked his room. He hung up the phone with a huge sense of accomplishment. Step 11. Learning through immersion. While in London, Alex realized that the best way to improve his English was through immersion. He surrounded himself with English every day, whether it was through conversations, reading signs, listening to local radio stations, or watching British TV shows. The more he exposed himself to English in real-life situations, the more natural it became. One weekend, Alex decided to take a train to the countryside to explore the famous English landscapes he had always read about. As he boarded the train, he sat next to an older gentleman who smiled and said, "Lovely day for a trip to the countryside, isn't it?" Alex nodded and replied, "Yes, it's a beautiful day. I'm excited to see the countryside." The man, whose name was Mr. Thompson, struck up a conversation with Alex, asking where he was from and what had brought him to England. Alex shared his story, how he had struggled with English for so long but had finally decided to face his fears and learn the language properly. Mr. Thompson listened intently and then said, "You know, young man, learning a language is like planting a garden. You have to tend to it every day, water it, and give it sunlight. Eventually, it blossoms." Alex smiled, appreciating the metaphor. He realized that his journey wasn't just about learning English. It was about growing as a person. He thanked Mr. Thompson for the advice, and they continued chatting for the rest of the train ride, sharing stories about life, travel, and language. Step 12. Finding humor in mistakes. Throughout his journey, Alex learned one important lesson. Laughter makes everything easier. He realized that he didn't need to take every mistake so seriously. In fact, some of his funniest and most memorable moments came from the mistakes he made while speaking English. One day, Alex decided to try his hand at cooking a traditional English breakfast. He invited Maria over, excited to show off his new cooking skills. But when he was at the supermarket trying to buy ingredients, he got confused by the names of some food items. He wanted to buy bacon, but accidentally asked the shopkeeper for beacon instead. The shopkeeper raised an eyebrow and said, "A beacon? You mean like a lighthouse?" Alex burst out laughing when he realized his mistake. No, I meant bacon," he corrected himself, and the shopkeeper laughed along with him. When he told Maria about the mix-up later, they both laughed until their sides hurt. It was moments like this that reminded Alex that making mistakes was part of the process, and it didn't mean he was failing. If anything, it meant he was learning. Step 13. Making English part of his daily life. By the time Alex had been learning English for 2 years, he no longer thought of it as something separate from his life. It had become a natural part of his daily routine. He spoke English with his friends, watched the news in English, and even dreamed in English sometimes. One day, Alex received a call from a company he had applied to for a job. They wanted to interview him for a position as a tour guide for English-speaking tourists. Alex couldn't believe it. This was his dream job, showing people around his beautiful town while speaking English. The interview was nerve-wracking, but Alex reminded himself of how far he had come. He dressed in his best suit and walked into the office with confidence. The interviewer greeted him with a smile and asked him to introduce himself. Alex spoke clearly and confidently, sharing his story of how he had learned English and why he was passionate about the job. The interviewer was impressed. "It's clear that you've worked hard to master English, and your passion for helping others shines through. We'd love to have you on our team." Alex couldn't believe his ears. He had done it. He had not only become fluent in English but had also landed his dream job because of it. Step 14. Helping others on their English journey. As Alex settled into his new role as a tour guide, he found himself meeting people from all over the world, many of whom were learning English just like he had. He remembered how difficult it had been for him at the start and decided that he wanted to help others on their language learning journeys. In his free time, Alex started a blog where he shared his experiences and tips for learning English. He wrote about the importance of setting goals, practicing every day, and finding ways to make learning fun. He even included some of his funniest mistakes, like the time he accidentally ordered a can of goat instead of a can of Coke at a restaurant. His blog quickly gained followers, and soon people from all over the world were reading his posts and leaving comments. They thanked him for his encouragement and shared their own stories of learning English. Alex felt a deep sense of fulfillment knowing that he was helping others overcome the same challenges he had faced. One day, a young woman named Sophia, who was struggling with her English, reached out to Alex for advice. She told him that she felt embarrassed every time she spoke English and was thinking about giving up. Alex shared his own story with her, reminding her that everyone makes mistakes and that the key to success is persistence. Sophia took his advice to heart, and a few months later, she messaged Alex to let him know that she had passed her English exam with flying colors. Alex was overjoyed to hear that his words had made a difference. Step 15. The final step. Never stop learning. Even after becoming fluent in English, Alex never stopped learning. He knew that languages are like living things. They change, grow, and evolve over time. He continued to read books, watch movies, and practice speaking every day. He attended workshops and took online courses to keep improving. Alex also started learning other languages, using the same techniques that had worked for him with English. He became fascinated by the way different languages open doors to new cultures and experiences. In the end, Alex's journey was about more than just learning a language. It was about discovering his own strength and resilience. He had started as a nervous, unsure young man who could barely ask for directions, and he had grown into a confident, fluent English speaker who helped others achieve their dreams. And so, Alex's story became one of inspiration, not just for himself, but for everyone who heard it. He showed the world that with dedication, humor, and a willingness to make mistakes, anyone could become fluent in English and in life. Conclusion. The power of persistence. Alex's story reminds us that learning English, or any language, is a journey filled with ups and downs. There will be moments of doubt, frustration, and even embarrassment. But if you keep going, stay patient,